Hello everyone and welcome to 9 Inch Charge, and today we are going to talk about another Old World development diary on the Warhammer community. That's two in as many months. They're coming thick and fast now, and this one is focused on the Tomb Kings, and I couldn't be more excited about it. This is the first time that they have confirmed in black and white that there's going to be a playable faction coming back to the tabletop. And previously they said, oh, the game's in play testing, or we designed this faction alongside Total War and things like this, but they've not actually said, we have designed this faction to be playable in this game, and now they have, and it is the Tomb Kings. And how exciting is that? It's brilliant to see that these guys are going to be coming back, because I do really miss them. They're a fantasy trope that is missing in Age of Sigmar. They're something that was pretty much exclusive to Warhammer Fantasy Battles, so really excited for that. But as always with these articles, there are little nuances and little things that they hint at, and actually they're saying a lot more than what first meets the eye. So let's go through the article together. Let's have a read of it and let's see what we think and have a good old chat about that. So, the first thing to say is that this is an interview with Rob, who is the design manager of Warhammer The Old World, and with writers Jonathan and Dan, and they are going to reveal some macabre details of the Land of the Dead and its tyrannical monarch. And the first thing that they say is that this time we're going to take a look at something that will be extremely familiar to long-time fans: the Land of the Dead and the tyrannical rule of Setra the Imperishable, the undying king of Khemri. The Supreme Mortarch of Nehekara and the Tomb Kings are going to be major players in the stories we tell in Warhammer The Old World, and it has been wonderful to come back to them after all these years. They're not technically denizens of the Old World, but their invasions play a key part in the narrative during the time of the history of the setting. So we've got some brand new artwork here. We've got some really lovely looking skeleton warriors. And we've got a map update, and I always love to see these map updates. And there's some cool familiar things on the map. There's a pyramid here, which you would hope would be the pyramid built by Nagash and all the different settlements. We've got the World's Edge Mountains coming down here. Surprised that we don't have any other icons in the World's Edge Mountains here, because actually they are inhabited by all kinds of things. Orcs, goblins, there are some dwarves still in this, even this far down there are some dwarves. And there's even some Skaven as well. So surprising we haven't seen that, but you know, there's always time and room for them to expand and to add that later on if that's where they want to go. Obviously, the focus of today's article is the Land of the Dead, and it's nice to see a brand new map of that. And then they go on to talk about the lore. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about these invasions and what it means that they're not really denizens of the old world, but they might play a part in it. See what we feel about that. So Jonathan, one of the writers, says that in life, Setra expanded the borders of Nehekara until his realm stretched beyond the horizon, eastward and westward. His legions marched across the deserts and mountains until they reached distant coasts to the north, and his dominion included lands now known as the Empire and Bretonia. And in the years that followed his death, lesser monarchs lacked the will and ambition to maintain such a massive kingdom, and over the centuries it shrank to a shadow of its former glory. When Setra awoke from death following the great necromancer's diabolical ritual, his wrath was unmatched. Not only had the Lich Priest failed to return to an eternally youthful body, but his dynasty had crumbled to insignificance in his absence. Since that day, Setra has been plotting the reconquest of lands that were once his, and the subjugation of those usurper kings, queens and emperors who dare rule in his stead. No doubt we will see these plans of conquest set into motion when the time is right. So basically where we are in the storyline is that Setra has come back. As we said, his land has shrunk. They're very much diminished. Also, a lot of the tombs have been plundered. A lot of the treasure has been stolen. This has mainly been done by Norska and Norse tribes, but also by Bretonians, by the Empire, people coming down and looting treasure. And he has vowed to get every single piece of gold back. And this is where the invasions come from. So now he's going to launch invasions up into the old world to reclaim all this long lost treasure and things like that. So the article does say he's not technically a denizen of the old world, and what it means by that is that the old world is what we think of as being like Tilia, Estalia, the Empire, Bretonia, these kinds of areas. And then you've got the New World, and you've got Lustria, and you've got Ulthuan, and all these other areas that Ind and Araby, and these aren't part of the Old World. They're part of the Warhammer world, the Warhammer Fantasy Battles as well, but they're not part of the Old World. And it's interesting that they say, you know, actually, they're not part of that, and that's the setting of the game, but they are going to be invading. So that's really interesting that actually Warhammer The Old World, as we've thought about before in the podcast, is it really going to only take place in the Old World, or is the scope going to be much bigger? And it seems like it is only going to take place in the Old World, from what they're saying here. But that doesn't mean we're not going to have outside influence. So, for example, we know that the High Elves are trading in the Empire, and we know that they have got little settlements and colonies and outposts out along the coast of Bretonnia. So it doesn't mean there isn't going to be this outside influence, but the game setting isn't going to expand down into the Land of the Dead, even though we have the map, is seemingly what they're saying here. Looking in the lore, obviously we have this stuff that I just spoke about, where Setra is going out trying to reclaim this treasure. There is also something that an interaction between the Empire and the Tomb Kings. So this game takes place in the early 2200s of the Imperial calendar, and Graf Heimholtz, who is a Grand Temple Master of the Knights of the Blazing Sun from the Empire, launches a march upon Numus, which is one of the kingdoms in the Land of the Dead, and he kills a Pharaoh king, Kim Farak. He falls in combat against the Grandmaster, but then Graf Heimholtz himself is then slain when Apophis appears and claims his soul. So hopefully we'll get to see an Apophis model, which would be really cool. Apophis is a named character for the Tomb Kings. He's the Cursed Scarab Lord, and he had a really cool model where he was kind of covered. He was basically all scarab beetles, like all over his body, all over his arms, his legs, his hands. He was kind of made of scarab beetles, and then he had this skull head. He was really cool, so it's good to see that there's an interaction, or a precedent of an interaction, between the Knights of the Blazing Sun of the Empire and the Tomb Kings, and we know that these other invasions are going on at the same time as well. So cool that they're going to write that. It looks like they're going to expand upon that lore, because that is all that we have at the moment. So it'll be really interesting to see and learn about individual raids and things that haven't been documented before. But this is what's great about this setting, is that it does give them a blank canvas to be able to do that. So next up, Dan talks, and he says, "We've taken a great deal of care to make the undead work. It was vital that the rules represented balanced game mechanics whilst evoking the frightening image of rank upon rank of skeleton warriors marching in unison, as chariots speed towards the enemy, flanked by monstrous constructs animated by the magic of the mortuary cults. You'll be able to wield the power of a Lich Priest once more, commanding skeletal hordes to arise from their tombs and march upon the land of the living." That's really cool. So it's talking about a mechanic there. The word arise is bold. That's going to be raising models from the dead. When your ranks are depleted, you'll be able to add to them, I'm sure, and rebuild the army back up to its original strength, or maybe even beyond that. It's cool that it says you're going to have ranks upon ranks of skeletal hordes. So we are looking at a horde army, and it's going to be, it sounds like it's very hammer and anvil, you know. You've got big rank and file horde units of unbreakable undead, and once you get into those, you're stuck in them like a tar pit, and they're going to rise more and more into the unit even as you try and defeat them. And then in your flanks are going to come massive monsters and chariots. Sounds very cool. And nice to see that they've thought about that already. They're telling you kind of the mechanics of how the army is working. So they must be really far along in the play testing. You know, the rules are written, which is interesting to see here. And then they finish off. So the Warhammer community asks, with Setra's attention seemingly fixed upon foreign affairs, will we get much of a chance to explore the Land of the Dead itself? And Rob says, our main focus is going to be on the role of Setra and the Tomb Kings of Khemri that they played in the Old World, but there's nothing to stop us returning to Nehekhara in the future. There are plenty of instances of Tomb Kings waging war on one another, while Setra's attention was elsewhere, And that's before we even get started on raiders and invaders from far-off lands. Many have scoured the blistering deserts in Nehekara in search of ancient treasures, hoping to stumble on wealth beyond imagination, while others sought long-forgotten secrets or legendary artifacts worth far more than gold. So, as it says, nothing to stop them returning to this land, but the focus of the Old World primarily is going to be the Old World. The name kind of gives it away. I did think that they might expand a bit further. So it's interesting to see that they are just keeping it this way for now, but there's nothing to stop them. Season 1 could be the Old World, a bit like in Age of Sigmar. This season is in the realm of beasts. They could go further and expand out and add more to the game as they go on and as we get different editions. But it seems like definitely this first edition is going to be only in the Old World and what influences the Old World. Especially, we are going to have outside influence as well. So that's really great to see. The Tomb Kings are confirmed, the rules are written, they're coming back, they're going to have hordes of skeletons, they're going to have cool mechanics to raise models from the dead, you're going to be able to use Leech Priest, the map has been updated, it's just all good news, and I can't wait to hear more about this, and I really hope now that they've done 2 articles in 2 months, that this will be a monthly thing where we sit down and we look at these articles together month by month and try and figure out what's going on and what's being said. And hopefully this ramp up in news being released tells us that the release is coming closer. Now, I have said that I don't think it's going to come out this year, but I think it will be revealed by the end of the year, pretty much. We'll see units and we might even get to see what the box is. And I think it's still set for a release next year, but you never know. With this coming this closely, and Warhammer Fest not being too far away, maybe we will see something. But let me know what you think in the comments. I, for one, am really excited about this. I love the Tomb Kings. I love the aesthetic of them. I do think that some of the plastic kits still do hold up. I know some of the models are quite old, but I would love to see them bring back some of the older models. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So that's the roundup for the Warhammer Community article this month, but hopefully there'll be one next month, and I will catch you then.
Thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to leave a comment and let me know what you think. I do read every single comment. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now, I'd really like to use this time to thank those of you who support us on Patreon or those of you who are YouTube members. You guys have entered the Hall of Heroes and you really are champions in our eyes, and we raise our glasses to you and salute you. You help make it possible for us to do what we do and invest in our equipment, help pay for the hosting of the audio of the podcast and all kinds of other things. Now, if you would like to support the channel, the absolute best way to do this is to join the ranks of the Hall of Heroes and to sign up either by Patreon or YouTube members, and there's a link in the description below. And we also have some exclusive merchandise only available there as well. So a huge thank you to Setra Kuru Khan
and Alithanar.
This has been 9 Inch Charge, and I will catch you next time.